Hello, everyone. I have an absolutely massive book unhaul for you today. I spent the last month going through all my shelves, just picking out stacks of books, just random stacks, and just like sitting with them, looking up reviews, reading a chapter, trying to figure out if I need this book in my house. And the reason for this is I've just been buying so many books recently. My tastes are changing. I'm not the same reader that I was maybe 5, 7 years ago. So I ended up with over 100 books here that I'm going to get rid of, and I'm just going to go through them and let you know why. The first book I'm getting rid of is Size. This is an uncorrected proof that I got from the publisher a couple years ago, maybe last year. I tried reading it. It was kind of boring. I looked up the reviews, and the reviews were really bad. So I decided I didn't need to suffer through this one. So I'm going to let that one go. I have a David Sedaris, Squirrel Seeks Chipmunk. I think the only reason I was holding on to this book was because it was signed by David Sedaris. But you know what? It really is not that amazing. The stories are extremely weird. This is, I think, his only work of fiction. I love his nonfiction works. I have all of them, and I saved all of them, but this one is just way too strange, so I'm going to let that one go. This is The Fake that I got from the publisher. This was a really good book. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know if I want to reread it. I don't know if it's special enough to reread. It was kind of like a light thriller, and I don't know. It was great when I read it. I really, really enjoyed this, but I just don't want to pick it up again. I'm also getting rid of My Last Innocent Years. This is an uncorrected proof. I read this one. I loved it, but I don't think I'm going to reread it. And if I do want to reread it, I'm sure I can get a brand new copy. This is the unpublished version. So, but I don't have any pull towards rereading it. Another book I got from the publisher, I think it was last year, was The Lifestyle. And again, this is a book I really, really enjoyed, but I don't think I want to read it again. And that's a big question is, do I want to reread a book? And maybe I have so many books to reread, so many amazing books that I don't want to just hold on to books that were great, but maybe not rereadable. Hidden Brilliance. This is a book that I got as a gift about autism. I read the reviews, and I think that this book is a bit problematic, so I decided to not read it. The reviews are pretty bad. This is a Michael Lewis book, Panic. I was really excited to find this, but this turns out to be just a collection of his random essays. And last time I read a collection of random essays by Michael Lewis, I didn't really enjoy it. So, people recommend just reading his full books. So I'm just not going to hold on to this one. I read My Own Words by Ruth Bader Ginsburg earlier this year, and it was a bit of a slog. It was very complicated. It was mostly a collection of speeches, and I don't think I want to go through this again. I thought I would, but now that I think about it again, I don't think I want to read this again. I'd rather just find her biography. This one was just, parts were good, some parts were not so good. 0 to 1, I read this book a couple years ago by Peter Thiel, and I just have no interest in reading it again. I don't have a startup. I'm not a business person, and I don't even remember that this book was that good. It was kind of weird and maybe a little insane in parts, so I don't want to go through that again. This is Without Its Jacket, Shakespeare by Bill Bryson. I read this 2 years ago. It was interesting enough, but I started rereading it this month, and I don't care. I'm not interested. Who really knows anything about Shakespeare? I don't think Bill Bryson does. This is Age of Iron by J.M. Coetzee. I'm really rethinking my J.M. Coetzee books. I tend to hoard books by famous authors, especially authors who win the Nobel Prize, whether they're good or not good. So I don't think this one's supposed to be very good, but I have a bunch of really good ones by him as well, so I'm holding on to those. Getting rid of The Origin of Species. This book is just ugly and sun damaged. I've tried reading this book. It was so dry. I have so many amazing interpretations of this book by Richard Dawkins and other scientists or science writers. I think I'd rather read those, and when I am ready to try the original source material, I'll buy a cuter version of this book, because this book is just ugly. This is a play by Michael Friend, Democracy. I've tried reading this play so many times, but it was so dry, and I just was not interested. So every time I picked this book up, I didn't get very far. This is How to Practice by the Dalai Lama. I actually finished this book last night, and it was so weird. I read another book by him earlier this year, which was Happiness, on happiness. And I love that one. That one was great. This book was kind of like a manual, and there was a lot of weird stuff in this book that I don't need. Maybe a little too religious for me, so I don't need this book again. This is Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. I bought this book for my husband years ago, and he never got into it. He said it was kind of weird. And I love Dan Harris. I love his book on how to be 10% happier. But this book is, the reviews were not good either. So this is not a book I think we're going to ever need. This is Growing Up Mindful. I think I've read about half of this book. I've been trying to read, sorry about that loud sound, that's my vacuum cleaner. I've been trying to read this book for years. It is not like a very readable book. It's just techniques, and I really just don't care anymore. It just gives me anxiety. This is The Drawed, the Dinglot, and an Avocado or Two by Anu Garg. I've read other books by this author, just collections of words and definitions. This one I just could not get into. The words were just so weird. I just didn't care. This is a collection of essays by J.M. Kotezi, and it's not very well rated. I've tried reading this. It's kind of dry and boring. So I'm not going to keep it. This book by John Brockman, This Explains Everything. I read the reviews, and it just doesn't look that interesting to me. I heard this is kind of just a collection of just random stuff, and it's not very well done, so I don't need it. How to Read Poetry Like a Professor. I've picked this book up many times over the years, and I have not gotten very far. I can't seem to concentrate on this book, so I'm just going to let it go. I really liked all of his reading literature books, but this one I just could not get into. And I have so many other poetry guides that I've gotten over the years that I'm more excited to read. And plus, it's not well rated. This is a book called Food Politics from my childhood. I read this in college. It's a very technical book. I thought I would want to read it again, but really, no, I'm not at all. Plus, I think it's been updated. This is Lies My Doctor Told Me. I just recently got this book, and I was really excited to read it. But I don't know, some of the reviews are not very good. And the first chapter is Don't Believe Your Doctor, Believe in God. So I don't know about that. And I don't even know if any of these, anything in this book is really that important for me to read. I don't know. I'm not going to deal with it. I've had this book forever, Life of Chopin by Franz Liszt. And I just read the reviews. I have never picked it up. It's so tiny. Plus the reviews aren't very good. So might as well just get rid of it. This is a book I got a couple years ago, In Code. So this seems like it's more on cryptology, which I'm not that interested in. And I don't know, it's not that well rated. And I've had no interest in picking it up, so I might as well let it go. Also, the good thing about making these videos and keeping track of all the books I get rid of is if I ever do want to read any of these books, I know I can figure out what they are and get them. And also, I love shopping for books so much that I think I might enjoy shopping for them more than actually reading them, if that's possible. So I'm sure I'll run into these books again if I really want them. I mean, it happens all the time. I'm always rebuying books I got rid of because now I want to read them, or, they won some prize. So this is the Orion Nebula, and I think it's just outdated. I think it's outdated and not very well rated. So I don't need to keep that. Same thing with this book. This book is a bit, it's not that scientific. It's interesting, but I don't think it's like about a real theory that's been proven. It's just speculation. So I don't think I need to read that. This book I was really excited to read, and I got this years ago as a gift, but I've never picked it up, and the reviews are just terrible. People saying it's a waste. So I'm not going to read that. American Childhood. I've tried reading this book a couple times. I can't get into it. It's just so boring. So I'm going to let that one go. And I think most people agree with me, except for the ones that love it, of course. Tesla, I have tried getting rid of and reading this book so many times. It's so boring. I have other books about Tesla that are way more interesting. I don't think this is the best one out there, so I'm just going to let it go. Aristotle in 90 Minutes. This one I read this year, or maybe last year, I don't remember. It was okay. I have cliff notes on Aristotle that I think that's enough for me when I'm reading Aristotle books. I don't need to hold on to this. This is unnecessary. I have In Other Words by Jhumpa Lahiri. I love her book, The Interpreter of Maladies. I've tried reading this. I think I got through half, but it was just very dry, and I just was not interested at all. This is her exploration of learning Italian, which it's interesting, but I just couldn't get into it. Let's see. We got The Logical Leap. This book had some very odd reviews, and I think the reviewer said it was a lot like Ayn Rand philosophy. Yeah, it's based on Ayn Rand's theory of concepts. I'm okay. I don't need to read this. Fighting for Your Marriage. I got this book last year. I really don't think we need this. I don't know. I'm not interested in that book. There's other books on communication and marriage that I'd rather read. I got this book as a gift, Whole Brain Teaching for Challenging Kids, back when I was homeschooling, and I never read it, and I'm not interested anymore. I'm not homeschooling anymore. My kids are not that challenging, so there's really no reason for me to read that or keep it. This is Saturday by Ian McEwan. It's just not one of his well-rated books, so I'm just going to let it go. I got Certain Trumpets by Gary Willis. I've read parts of this book. It's not the best writing. Most of the people in this book I'm not really interested in. I don't think I'm going to keep going. This is an advanced reader's edition of this book, which I read last year, and I have a brand new copy, like a book of the month copy that I found at a thrift store that's really pretty, so I'm just going to get rid of this one. Same thing with Quiet. I have a nice hardcover edition of this book. I did actually love this one, but I don't need 2 copies. And same thing with Hitch 22. I got a nice hardcover copy, even though I haven't yet read this, but I do want to read this because I heard it's really good. Steve Jobs, I've had this book forever. I've tried reading it. I think I got through a third before I got just too bored. I don't really care about Steve Jobs too much. I don't have Apple products. I don't know. I don't need to keep the book. It's huge and gives me anxiety every time I look at it. This is Nikola Tesla's Experiments and Discoveries. I've had this book forever. I've tried reading it. It's very technical and written in a very old style. And if I get interested in learning more about Nikola Tesla's inventions, I'll probably find a better book than this. Let's see, The World in 6 Songs. This is his worst rated book. I think the Your Brain on Music is better rated, so I'll hold on to this one. Hold on to that one and let this one go because it's just not very well rated. This is The Signal and the Noise. I have tried reading this book a couple times. I can't get into it. It's also not the newest edition. This book's been updated. It's like twice as long now. I'm just gonna let it go. Way Out in the Blue. I've had this book since high school or maybe college. I never picked it up. I think I've read the first chapter. I'm just not interested in Reagan, and if I am, I probably would find a better book. Cosmic Dispatches. This book is just so outdated. There's really no reason to read it or hold on to it. Plus, it's badly rated. This is, I just recently got this one. I was really excited to read it, but then I read the reviews and people said this book was not the best one. I'm super fascinated in Werner von Braun, but there are better books out there on this scientist, and I'd rather read those. This book is supposed to be really badly written and mostly is like articles and things like that. It's not a good book about him. This is Leadership by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I have tried reading this book. I got through a half. I hated it, and so I'm not going to read it. I feel like it's written for children, and it's so disjointed, and I'd rather just read the original books about these leaders. I think this book is just really bizarre. I just could not stand it. The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. I've been trying to get myself to read this book for years. I read through about half of it like 4 years ago, and I could not stand it. I found it super irritating, and I'm just going to let it go. I'm not interested. It's boring. This is A Time Machines. It's a collection of essays on time travel, and I actually have the entire Science Fiction Hall of Fame collection, all 3 volumes. I'm sure the good stories in this book are in those books, or I have them in other books because I have a lot of collections of sci-fi stories. This book is just not well rated. People said the collection is, has a lot of bad stories and some good, so I'm just gonna let that one go. The Dream of Spaceflight I read a couple years ago. It was okay, but I had to really force myself to get through it, so I'm not going to pick it up again. And this process is extremely painful for me as a book hoarder to get rid of so many books, but it's been kind of an interesting exercise, and I'd like to do this again before the end of the year because it really does feel good to get rid of a lot of books. I have The Boy Who Played with Fusion. Read this a couple years ago. It was a great story, very interesting. I have no interest in rereading this book. It's just the story of one child prodigy and how his parents raised him. And, now I know the story. I don't really want to read it again. Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. I tried reading this. I was bored. I didn't really care. Plus I heard that he made a lot of this book up. So I don't know. I don't want to go back into this one. Another book I just could not get into was Five Presidents. I got through the first couple chapters and I just was not interested in this man's story. So I'm just going to let it go. Let's see. What to Read and Why by Francine Prose. I read this book a couple years ago, and I don't think I liked it very much. I know I have 2 books by her. One is better than the other. This is the worst one. The Reading Like a Writer. I think I like that one most. This one was just, I don't know. I think I zoned out through most of it. How to Be Alone by Jonathan Franzen. I just bought this book last month, and the reviews are just so bad. I'm just going to let it go. I'm not even going to try. Mapping Human History. Got this book last year, but I think it's really outdated based on the reviews. So I'm just going to let that one go. Martin Dressler. I read this last year. I actually love this book, but this is a really old, kind of battered copy. I'm sure I'll find a nicer copy at a thrift store at some point. It wasn't the most amazing book. It was okay. It was okay. It was interesting enough. I'd like to reread it, but I'd like to reread a nicer copy than this. So I'm just going to preemptively let that one go. A Very Nice Girl. This is another ARC I got, and I really liked it. I read this last year. I really, really enjoyed this book. But I don't know if I want to reread this. It was hard to read. I mean, it wasn't hard to read, but it was a sad story. This is Enough by John C. Bogle. I got this as a gift for Christmas 2 years ago, and I've tried reading it, and I'm really not interested, and the reviews are just kind of really down on him, so I'm just going to let that one go. After Death, I got this from my mom's house. This is a book I had as a child. I started rereading this, and it was just nonsense. It's a lot of silly stuff that I don't believe in. Hidden Staircase. I don't know where this book came from. I don't know why it was on my shelves. I'm not interested in reading Nancy Drew, and neither are my kids. Red Roulette. I read almost all of this book last month, but it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I don't understand why this book was written. It was just this author who just was going on and on about how great he is. And I was like, when are you getting to the story? And it was almost done, and it never started. It was just going on about how great he and his ex-wife were. I couldn't take it. This is The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. I read this last year. I really, really liked it, but not enough to reread. It was kind of an experience I think I'm done with. And again, if I do want to reread it 5 years, whatever, 4 years from now, I'm sure I'll find it at a thrift store because it has the worst rating of 3.1, and I'm sure people got rid of their copies. This is Trinity. I read this last year. It was good, but absolutely bizarre. So I'm just going to let it go and see if I ever want to read it again. I'm getting rid of the Michael Wolff Donald Trump trilogy. Here's another one. I have so many books on Donald Trump, probably almost all books on Donald Trump. And so I just needed to make some decisions, which ones to keep and which ones to get rid of. And I think since Michael Wolff's books are not very well rated, they were fun. They were really fun reads, really. I really enjoyed them. But they're a bit trashy. And I don't know. I'm going to hold on to books by more reputable writers. Not that I didn't enjoy these, but I needed to get rid of some Donald Trump books. Too many. This is Huckleberry Finn. I just finished this book last week. And I really liked the first half. Loved the first half. It was amazing. And then I really did not like the ending. Maybe like the last third, where he gets back with Tom Sawyer and they start messing around and coming up with silly stories and like pretending to free Jim in weird creative ways. That just kind of drove me insane. I could not stand that, especially after reading James. And that's why I picked this book up, so that I could kind of read it back to back with James. And this book, this is my 4th time reading it. I think I read it 3 times in high school. And yeah, most of it's really good. But just the ending was infuriating. So I think I'm done. I'm done with Huckleberry Finn. I'm good. I got it. This is a really old copy of The Spy Who Came in from the Cold. I finished this book this month. I didn't get it. I'm not very smart. I'm going to have to admit that. I'm going to have to reread this book, but I also got myself a brand new, really nice copy at a thrift store, and I'm going to reread that one. Not this old one. Yeah, that was, I don't know, not smart enough to understand that. This is The Brothers by Masha Gessen. Masha Gessen's one of my favorite writers on Russian and various Russia-related issues. I just finished this book this month. It was good. It was kind of like a profile on terrorism. It was about the brothers who committed the Boston massacre, the Marathon massacre, and it was an odd book. It was very interesting at times, but it also didn't really answer any questions. And I studied terrorism in college as part of my political science degree, and this book kind of left me without any answers, without really understanding what her point was. It was just kind of information on these people and their family in Chechnya, and it was also extremely depressing and infuriating. I don't want to reread this book again. It was a doozy. I finished White Oleander this week. I loved most of it, but it kind of left me feeling like I never want to read it again. It was very traumatic and disturbing. It was beautifully written. The writing was beautiful. If I ever do feel like I have to read this book again, I am sure I'll find it at a thrift store. I always see at least 3 copies of this book everywhere I go. It was great. It was really great. I can see why people love this book. I just don't think I want to go through this experience again. It was very traumatic. The Body Artist by Don DeLillo. I started reading this book. It was weird. It was really weird. And the rating is terrible, so I'm just gonna let it go. I started reading Dead Astronauts, and again, this book is really trippy and weird. And I decided to just let it go. People say it's just a bunch of nonsense. I did just get his book, the other one he wrote, Annihilation, which I read a couple years ago, and I'm looking forward to rereading that one. But this one, I think I'm okay. I'm gonna get rid of The Diagnosis just because it is so badly rated, and I'll rather reread Einstein's Dreams and Good Bonito instead of getting this one. I don't think that Alan Lightman is the best fiction author, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. I decided to get rid of The Russia House just because I had such a hard time with The Spy Who Came in from the Cold. I kept some of the other John le Carré books, and I actually got a new one, The Constant Gardener by him this month. But this one, I'm just going to let it go because it's not well rated, and I can't say this is my favorite author. I have a really hard time reading his style. I'm not really into crime books. I'm going to get rid of The Master of Petersburg. I tried reading this one. It's not good. This is not a good book. It's not well rated. It's not very interesting. I gave it a good shot. Solar, this book I've tried reading, and then I ended up just reading the plot to see if I'm even interested. And no, I'm not. I'm not interested, so I'm just going to let it go. This book I just recently got, but then I read the reviews, and I think it's just a bunch of... it's not like real science. I think it's just it's kind of silly, so I'm not going to read this one. I have enough. I have so many books to read. This is an ARC that I got, I want to say last year or the year before that, and I read it and I liked it, but it was really confusing and weird. And if I find a copy of this again, maybe it'll be like a sign to read it again. I don't know. It was hard to get through it. It was very weird. It was like a portal science fiction book from like a startup in Silicon Valley. It was interesting enough, but maybe I liked it more because it was an ARC. This is so outdated. I think it's on its 16th edition now, and this is the 7th edition. I think I got this as a gift when I graduated from law school from a friend. I don't make anything that's patentable, copyrighted, trademark yet, and if I do, I think I'll buy the more recent edition or just Google it. Same thing with this book, super outdated, and this one's super outdated, so we don't need to hold on to extremely outdated reference guides. Same thing with this, Introduction to Astronomy. I've had this for years. It's so old. I don't need to hold on to it. And same thing with this old college physics theory and problem set. I don't know why I have that. It's very old. This book is outdated, so I don't need to hold on to it. This book was just terrible. Again, I really like his books on how to read literature and fiction, but this was just unnecessary, completely unnecessary. I had no interest in that one. This book I read last month, and I didn't like it. I didn't like anything she said in this. So I was very disappointed in that book. I read Steven Pinker's Enlightenment Now a couple years ago, and it was okay, but I think it's mostly been debunked by other books I've read, and people say this is not a good science book or history book or whatever it's trying to be. So it's no longer it's no longer necessary for me to reread that. I got a beautiful copy of Anna Karenina at a thrift store. And I don't need this copy. This is old and outdated and kind of washed out. So I'm actually reading it now and I'm really enjoying it. And then this is Bill Bryson's Notes from a Small Island. I read this book a couple years ago. It was okay. Parts were good, parts were boring. I don't need to reread that. Talking to Strangers. So many people hate this book. It was okay when I read it, but I think I need to let Malcolm Gladwell go and move on and read better books. Same thing with David and Goliath. I don't really remember much of anything in this book, and I really don't have any drive to reread it. So Fetch, I got this book from the publisher, I want to say either this year or last year. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to reread it. I don't even really care about Mean Girls. I really enjoyed this book, but there's no point in keeping it. I'm going to pass it on. I finished Philip Roth's Patrimony. It was great. I really liked it. I'm never going to reread it. It was kind of gross and sad. And yeah, I have Joe Biden's, what is this this is a biography. So written by Evan Osnos. It was okay. It's very, very short. I feel like there needs to be like a bigger book about him, maybe something more updated. I mean, when this book came out, he hadn't really done anything, so there's no reason to keep it. I also have Promise Me Dad. This one was written by Joe Biden. It was very depressing and sad about the death of his son. I don't need to read that again. I have another Malcolm Gladwell book, Blink. Again, I have no idea what this book was about, even though I think I've read it twice now, so it's just going to go. I did end up holding on to The Tipping Point because it was on some list of like best books. I think I'll probably read that one again and make a decision, but the rest I'll let go. This book, this was really sad. I loved this book so much when I first read it a couple years ago. Absolutely loved it. But I think I was drinking wine the whole time I was reading it, and maybe I was a little tipsy. Now I'm trying to read this sober, and I just can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. And plus, I know what's going to happen. I know the ending. I know the twists. I can't deal with it. It's just too hard for me. So I got through about half, and I'm going to have to DNF it the second time around. This is just like a very strange situation where I absolutely loved a book the first time I read it and then just cannot get through it the second time. So I'm going to have to let that one go. And then Anything is Possible. I got a brand new signed copy of this book, so I don't need to hold on to this one. And then I got a nicer copy of This Midnight Children that matches the Satanic Verses. So they look, oh, there they are. How cute are they on the shelf together? So I'm going to let this one go because it's kind of ugly. I decided to just let The Epic of Gilgamesh go. I do not need this book. And I also got a nicer hardcover copy of A Thousand Splendid Suns. So I don't need to hold on to this one. Anyway, so that's over 100 books. I'm super excited. I feel so much lighter. Now I just need to write down the titles I'm getting rid of and take them to a thrift store or whichever. Anyway, thank you for watching. And yeah, this was a really good experience. I highly recommend it. It was extremely hard. This is extremely hard because I did enjoy most of these books. But I'm just overwhelmed with books now. And it's like, as you can see, this is just my like TBR shelf, and it's just piles. And there are so many amazing books out there I want to read. I'm constantly going to thrift stores every week, buying new books. So it's time to just cull the ones I already have and ones I'm probably never going to pick up because they're just outdated or I don't want to reread them. Anyway, thank you for watching.